Hey everybody, it's Ron, and today I'm going to be starting a new series called Conan Book Club. I've been getting into the old Robert E. Howard Conan stories, and I thought it would be fun to do a video after each story I read, because if you're familiar with the old pulp magazines that these stories were originally published in, then you'll know that they are generally pretty short and to the point, which I find really refreshing after reading 1,000-page novels all the time. So if you want to follow along, I'm reading out of this edition. It's called The Coming of Conan, the Cimmerian, and this is the first story in this collection called The Phoenix on the Sword. It's interesting because this particular tale takes place later in Conan's life, and I found out that it was originally a Cole story, which is one of the characters that Robert E. Howard created before Conan, and he reframed the story for Conan instead. So in this short story, Conan is the king of Aquilonia, and forgive me if I'm pronouncing anything wrong, but I think that's how it is, Aquilonia. And certain factions form to take him out because they don't want a foreign man like Conan ruling them. The first thing I'll say is that for such a short story, we're introduced to a bunch of these characters who are plotting against Conan, and it does become a bit confusing even though the overall premise is very simple. I've read a couple Conan stories when he was younger, such as The Tower of the Elephant, for example. But I'm still generally new to Conan, so I wonder if this story would have had more of an impact if I read these stories in the right chronology. But having read the foreword in the beginning of this edition, I found out that Howard liked to skip around with the timeline, almost as if Conan is jumping around telling the readers the story of his life. And when I think of it that way, it helps me let go of wanting everything in order and just enjoy these stories as separate entities. So the main players against Conan are Volmana, the Count of Caraban, Grommel, the giant commander of the Black Legion, Dion, the Baron of Atalis, and Rinaldo, the Minstrel. They are known as the Rebel Four, and their main goal is to get rid of Conan and find someone more suited for the role of king, preferably somebody with royal blood. So you kind of see what I mean with the characters already, but there are even more because the Rebel Four hire a man named Escalante to help them, and he introduces us to another character named Thoth Amon. See, I bet you all the Conan fans are like getting real mad at me right now. Is it Thoth Amon? Let me know in the comments. But anyway, he is a Stygian wizard who isn't as powerful anymore since he lost a mystical ring that he used to own. So right away, for someone with only general knowledge of Conan, there's a lot of mythology and characters thrown at me. But aside from being overwhelming, it was also very intriguing. Thoth Amon apparently shows up in a couple other Conan stories, so I'm excited to see how Howard's work connects to one another. Like most of you, I was aware of Conan from the movie when I was growing up, and for whatever reason, I was never really drawn to the character because it looked too bland. I didn't like the sword and sorcery stuff, and I didn't know that there was such a rich mythology to the stories, and they have mystical elements to them. And that made me want to go back and read everything. And like I said, it's the mystical elements that interest me the most. And in this story, there is a cool dream sequence. Well, you pretty much find out that it actually happens. Conan ends up meeting someone named Epimetheus, who was the prophet of Mitra, a Hyborian god. And Epimetheus ends up helping Conan by marking his sword with a phoenix symbol that represents Mitra. So that was cool. That was a cool bit of lore before the eventual assassination attempt on Conan. The illustrations by Mark Schultz are top-notch and really set the mood. I especially like the ape creature that Thoth Amon eventually summons after killing Dion, and the fighting scenes are also expertly realized. I love how fast-paced Howard's stories are and how well he writes action. The final confrontation between Conan and the Rebel Four is brutal and unrelenting. It really shows that no matter how old Conan is, he's still a barbarian at heart, and I like how Howard sets up this idea that Conan is not an easy man to take down, especially with his years and years of experience before becoming a king. So yeah, this was a good start to the book. I'm looking forward to reading more Conan stories, especially the early adventures. And hopefully that gives more context for certain stories that take place later in his life. But from what I know, most of these adventures are pretty standalone, and that's also fine. To me, these are like good pop songs where you get a lot out of it in a really short amount of time, and it makes it easier to go back to the best ones over and over again for repeat enjoyment. And I think that's why I've been getting into stuff like Conan or Doc Savage and the original Phantom newspaper strips, because they all have that similar feel. So let me know if you guys have read this story and tell me what you thought of it in the comments. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this content, and thanks for watching. Hey everyone, it's Ron here with a quick announcement. When I started this channel, I was reading and reviewing the Dune books and other sci-fi related material, and most of you might not know that I'm also a musician. So when I was reading these sci-fi books, I started to get inspired and decided to make my own soundtrack to use for my videos, and now I'm excited to tell you all about the first volume in the Ron Reviews original soundtrack collection. This album includes the first 17 tracks featured on my channel, and it's available now exclusively on Bandcamp. Be sure to check the description of this video for the link to the album. Thanks so much for the support so far. I know I'm just starting out, but I hope you're having as much fun as I am. So check out the original soundtrack Volume 1 on Bandcamp. This music is great if you want something moody and atmospheric to listen to while you're reading some science fiction. I think you're going to love it. Thanks.